Now, Bellevue isn't only popular with people in Britain. I know we've all got our memories of the place, especially if you're from Manchester. But would you believe a gentleman called David Boardman lives and works in Canada? But you know something? He runs a local history website all about Bellevue. And he's joining me now. Hello, how are you?
Just fine. How are you, Alberto?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. All the way from Canada. What's the fascination with Bellevue?
It's a fairly long story, but I grew up in Longsight.
That's not a Longsight accent.
I grew up in Longsight and the sort of triangle between Kirkham-Zoom Lane, New Bank Street, and Stockport Road, an area that has basically disappeared off the face of the earth and been rebuilt in the 1960s.
Right.
My father worked at Bellevue for a period of time while we lived there.
What did he do?
I think he was just basically a general labourer.
Right.
He was involved in just about everything, including the firework displays and the circus and a number of things. And back in 1999, I started a website about Longsight. I wanted to do something about documenting the history of the place, especially since the part of Longsight I grew up in has essentially disappeared forever, and everybody who lived there is spread all around the world.
Sure. I mean, you moved to Canada in 1968, so Bellevue was still going at that time, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Bellevue started out, my website on Bellevue started out as one page in the Longsight site. And,
right.
It became so big after a period of time that it became a website of its own.
Became a monster, did it?
It did, just took off.
You've still got family, though, in the area, haven't you?
Yeah, I have a sister who lives in Romilly, just near Stockport, and I have lots of friends who still live there. In fact, I mean, the reason why I actually, you say I have a website about Bellevue, I actually have 7 websites about Manchester.
Really?
And one of them is Longsight, and one of them is Bellevue. And a lot of that is down to people who live in Manchester still and live in other parts of the world who sent me information and photographs. A bloke called Les Cotton who lives in Norden, just outside Rochdale.
Right.
He's a walking encyclopedia of this place. And it's been
Do you get lots of hits on your website?
I think we must, because we get tons of email. We get lots of letters from all around the world. I mean, the thing about Longsight is that the people who live there, most of them in the area I live, moved in the 60s.
Right.
Forcibly moved because the place was demolished. And a lot of them moved in other places in Manchester, but many of them moved to places like Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. And they seem to be thrilled to bits with an opportunity to go back and visit Bellevue and go back and visit Longsight on the internet.
There's nothing like reminiscing, though, is there? I mean, it sort of makes you feel nice and warm inside. When was the last time you were here, David?
Actually, there's nothing that long ago. It was April.
What do you think about the regeneration of Eastlands now? Obviously, all the big stages going up ready for the Commonwealth Games. Did you manage to have a look at all that?
Oh yeah. I was in Manchester for a month last year, and again this April for a month, and spent most of my time travelling around. Manchester's a funny place. I mean,
I hope you mean that in a nice way.
Well, I do.
Good.
It's like, I mean, there's a bloke called Colin Schindler who wrote a book called Manchester United Ruined My Life.
Right.
And it's a story about a Jewish kid growing up in Manchester as a City supporter.
Yeah.
And one of the things he says about Manchester is that when people ask him where he lives, he has to say London. When people ask him where his home is, he said Manchester. And that's essentially how I feel about the place. I'm very fond of the place. But it reminds me in a lot of ways of what it was like, must have been like for mothers bringing up their kids in the 50s in a place like Longsight. I mean, they went to an awful lot of trouble to try and make sure your clothes were clean.
Sure.
And that you were washed. And 2 seconds after you were out on the street, you were as scruffy as could be.
And David, the other thing as well is they always had fabulous windows, bright white nets on the windows, and the step was always nice and clean as well. Those are the trademarks of Manchester, aren't they?
Well, they are. But, you know, it's, in a way, it's a sort of symptomatic of what Manchester's like. It doesn't seem to matter how much effort we go to make it posh and clean and fancy. It still has a sort of scruffy edge to it. And that's not something to denigrate. It's what it is. It's a northern city, and it's got a bit of a hard edge to it, and it's home. you know, and it'll always be home for me.
I think sometimes we try very hard to emulate sort of places in America and try to emulate London, but Manchester is a one-off. It's one on its own, definitely, and I couldn't agree with you more. When's your next visit?
Oh, probably not till next year.
Well, I'll tell you, next time you come, we'll extend an invitation at the BBC. Come in and have a chat with us.
All right, we will do that.
All right, David, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Okay.
Okay, what's your website? By the way, before you go, what's your website address?
Well, there's two ways you can get there.
Right.
If you go to BBC Manchester Online,
yeah,
and go to the net guide,
right.
They've got 6 of my websites listed in there. You just click on them and go to them.
Right, brilliant.
If you want to go to the Bellevue one,
yeah,
you can just use a simple address, which is travel.2, in all in lowercase letters. So travel.2, that's just TO,
yeah.
/ Bellevue, with a capital B and a capital V, but all one word.
That's so brilliant.
Travel to Bellevue.
Fantastic, David. Well, look forward to meeting you when you come over. Until then, be happy, as you Americans say, or Canadians, or whatever. Okay, see you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
That's David Boardman. He's the website man, of course, and all the way, would you believe, over in Canada. I mean, he gets lots of hits, so there must be people who, I don't know, left Manchester years and years ago, and sometimes like to think, well, you know, let's see what it was like, those lovely memories. If you've got any memories, why not give us a call, 0161 228 2255.